You're listening to the Life Coaching Secrets Podcast, episode number 25. Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. What's up, coaches? In this episode, I am going to talk about one of the biggest lies that many people tell themselves, and that is the lie that you're too busy. This is a topic I get so fired up about, so get ready. Now, a lot of people hide behind the word busy. They hide behind the idea of being too busy as a way to avoid taking responsibility for their life, for their schedule, and unfortunately as a way to avoid pursuing their dreams. So I'm going to break down what busy really means, why it is never true that you're too busy, and how to really take ownership of your calendar so that way you can have the time and have the freedom to get anything you want out of life. Before I get into this topic, I want to celebrate. Another one of our coaches has just passed the 100K mark in her coaching business. So big shout out to Mylene for just crushing it. Mylene and I were celebrating her first client. I think it was about 9 months ago when she enrolled her first client. And I think that client paid around $500. And that was a huge deal for her at the time. And just today, she let me know that she enrolled another client, which passed her total income for the year to over 100K. Now, Mylene is someone that's got a lot on her plate. She's got 2 kids that are both under 7 years old. Now, a lot of people might think, oh, I'm just too busy. I've got kids, got a lot going on. But I love that Mylene is having the success because she is an example of what it looks like for you to take responsibility for your life and not let your circumstances or your busyness get in the way. So huge congrats to Mylene, and looking forward to celebrating more successes with you as our coaches continue to crush it. Okay, so let's talk about time. As human beings, we are so good at filling up our schedules. We're so good at just filling up our calendar with things to do. And one of the sneakiest sentences that sabotages dreams is thinking, I'm too busy. But we all get 24 hours in a day. It's perhaps the one thing that is equal amongst all human beings on the planet. And time is truly the most precious resource that we have because once it's gone, it's gone. So it is essential that you are deliberate about your time and also the way that you choose to use it. So my hope for this episode is that it encourages you to examine your relationship with time and perhaps gives you some ways that you can help your clients also look at their relationship with time so you and them can become more aware of really how they could experience more freedom. So I'm going to also talk about freedom in this episode and share with you how to stop being so busy so that way you can truly enjoy a life of freedom and spend your time as you'd like to spend it. And also know that time is always available to you. There's always enough time when you have a healthy relationship with time. So let me define, what does time even mean? Because a lot of people think about time and they think about it as something that is just external to them. So it's thinking there's me and then there's time. Like there's this external clock that I'm seeing and then there's just me. So people see themselves as separate from time. But really time is a mental construct. Human beings got together one day and they decided what to find a day, what to find a minute, what to find an hour, what to find a second. So time was created by humans. These concepts were discovered and created thousands of years ago. And we all just agreed on these concepts and we put labels on how it is that we're going to start defining our time. And we started labeling our time as work time, free time, family time, and more when really it's all just time and we get to manage ourselves within it. So we might think of time as something that is external to us and just happening to us. Perhaps people might say things like, I just don't have the time, or I'm just too busy, or if only I had the time to do this thing. But if we believe any of those thoughts, we're lying to ourselves. There's simply time that's always available to us, and you get to choose how to manage yourself in that. So you really cannot manage time, but what you can manage is your mind. And when you do manage your mind, that allows you to use your time in the best possible way. Now, before I became an entrepreneur, I used to think that it would take a lot of time to grow a business. So I would question whether I really had the time to do it because I was so busy already. My plate was already full, taking on many other things that were going on in my life. I remember I was telling a friend about how I wanted to have a business and I had a lot going on. And without missing a beat, he said, "Liar, you're lying." And I said, "Excuse me, what do you mean?" And he replied by saying, "If you stepped on a nail right now, would you have the time to go to the hospital?" And I said, "Well, of course." So in that moment, it just became suddenly clear to me that when I say I don't have the time, it's either that it's not a priority to me, or it's that my fear is bigger than my mission. So now I no longer say I don't have the time for anything. I do not allow that sentence into my brain. I just make the time for the things I want. So if you're listening to this episode, can we all agree that when we say I don't have the time or I'm too busy, that is just total BS? A much more realistic and also empowering thought to have is I make time for things that are important to me. I prioritize the things that are important to me in my life. And I know that when I'm fully committed to something, no amount of time is going to get in the way of that. So instead of thinking I don't have the time or I don't know if I have the time, you just start thinking I'm going to make the time. How can I make the time? How can I prioritize this? So if you're listening and you're a parent, I want to present this idea to you. Before you became a mom or a dad, did you have the time for that? Did you just have all this time to raise kids? No, right? Our schedules are always pretty full. That's why we prioritize things. So this episode is about so much more than just time management. It's really about living your life deliberately, planning your time consciously, and following through on what you say you want to do. So a lot of people think I'm just so busy right now, and when I'm in retirement, I'm going to have all the time in the world. But it doesn't work that way, because if you can't manage your brain now, if you can't manage your brain and your time now, you're not going to be able to manage your time in retirement. So how do you see yourself when it comes to time? This is a really important question to ask yourself. How do you see yourself in relation to time? Are you just someone that's always busy? Because if you see yourself that way, you're going to act in accordance with that. You're going to do things to make you feel busy. But busy doesn't always mean productive. It's not productive to just keep yourself busy all the time. In fact, it's actually one of the least productive things that you can do. So time really is what you make of it, and it's also how you think about it. And there's many people that think they're so busy that they have all these things to take care of, and they've got to take care of all these people. They've got to take care of all these projects. They talk about being busy like it's just the weather. It's just this thing that's out of their control. They're just busy. Have you ever heard the phrase busy being busy? Many people are busy doing things that are not even moving them forward in life. They're just doing lots of things, but they're staying exactly where they've always been. And for many people, they wear their busyness as a badge of honor. They're proud of how busy they are. It makes them feel important, when really it's just sloppy management. So as you're listening to this episode, I want you to notice if there's any part of you that feels defensive, or maybe you're a little bit frustrated, and you might be thinking that I am busy. You might have this need to defend yourself or say, but really, I am busy. Get curious about that. If you have any defensiveness in you or a part of your brain that wants to latch on to your identity as a busy person, get curious about why that is. How is it really serving you to be so busy in your life? Like, what need is it fulfilling for you? What if instead of just thinking you're just busy, you instead started taking a little bit more responsibility, right? Instead of just saying, I'm just busy, I have all these things to do, you can start saying, I'm choosing to commit myself to X right now. I'm choosing to commit myself to this person. I'm choosing to commit myself to this project. Because whatever you're not changing in your life, you are choosing. So a lot of people get caught up with the idea that if you work a lot of hours, it means that you're working hard. So therefore, the busier you can make yourself, the harder that you're going to end up working. So what ends up happening is when people believe this, they're not mindful of the things that they're putting on their calendar. They don't question it. They don't consider how it all falls into what they really want most out of life, because they think if they just do more, it's going to get them more out of life. So there's doing things without realizing that those things are not really helping them design the life they ultimately want. So life in itself is not busy. Life is not busy. You just are thinking that way, and that's what's creating stress for you. So if you're busy being busy, a question to ask yourself is, how can you prioritize doing what will give you the life that you truly want? One of the things that I tell our coaches in the academy is that you are not a victim to your calendar or to your clock. You're not a victim to your calendar. You're not at the effect of it. You're actually at the cause of it. You are the architect of your calendar. You get to create your schedule. You decide what goes in it and what doesn't go in it. Every single week, every single day, you get to design it and you get to be intentional about it. So my hope is that when you're listening to this, you can start seeing yourself as the architect of your calendar, as the one that decides how you want to spend your time, rather than feeling like you're at the effect of your schedule. Now, I know that sometimes when people struggle with being busy all the time and they want to break all of the busyness that's sabotaging their life, sometimes it's about setting boundaries. So if you find that your time is being given to lots of people, examine that, because you have the agency to say no. You don't have to take someone up on every invitation offered to you. So what are some boundaries that you can put in place to honor your time? Honoring your time is one of the most important ways of honoring yourself. And when you have boundaries with other people, it doesn't mean that you don't like them. It's not a way of you pushing them away from you. It's actually your instruction for how you can love them in the most authentic way. So it's an act of love for another person to set a boundary with them. Whereas if you're not setting a boundary and you're just saying yes when you mean no, that's really people pleasing. That's an inauthentic way of connecting with someone. That is the opposite of love. So if you're finding that you're spreading yourself too thin because you find lots of other people need you, that's not other people to blame. That's on you. What is causing you to overextend yourself? Now, saying no oftentimes brings up guilt, especially if there's a tendency to people please. You might feel guilty, or you might feel bad or selfish or just wrong for saying no to someone who's requesting you and your time. But just because you feel guilty, bad, selfish, and wrong, it doesn't mean that you actually are guilty, bad, selfish, and wrong. And sometimes that's what you've got to remind yourself of, especially if you've been overexerting yourself for people for many years. You're going to feel guilty at first, but just because you feel guilty, it doesn't mean you are guilty. It doesn't mean that anything's gone wrong. Okay? All right. So what I also want to talk about when it comes to time and being busy is that a lot of times people that have a, quote, busy life, or at least they're thinking that, one of the things they desire most is more freedom with their time. So a lot of busy people desire freedom, but they are telling themselves that they're just too busy to create that freedom. So it becomes this paradox of freedom. Many people who are actually drawn to having a coaching business, they value purpose and impact and connection, and they also value freedom because they want to have the freedom to work when they want, travel when they want, and also choose how it is that they want to plan out their life. When I talk to a lot of people interested in becoming coaches, freedom is probably the most common thing I hear in terms of a value that someone has and why they want to become a coach. So I define freedom as having the ability to offer value, how you want to offer value, and live how you want to live. That's how I see freedom. And one of the most amazing benefits of having a coaching business is it enables freedom in your life. And I believe now is the best time ever than ever before to become a coach because freedom is so much more accessible than it's ever been before. As long as you're properly trained and you can learn coaching, which is a skill that gives so much value to people, you can make an amazing living from that. But a lot of people who value freedom, they limit themselves by confusing real freedom with a quick escape. So I want to explain the difference here and how to really experience true time freedom in your life. Now, many people work a 9 to 5 or maybe a 9 to 6. And then eventually they go on vacations once or twice a year. And when they're on those vacations, they say, this is the life. This is paradise. This is freedom. And then they need to stop their vacation after a week or two and come back to work. So they experience temporary relief, but they're still chained to their jobs. And their job is more of a have to instead of it being a want to. This is what I refer to as a quick escape. It's like having a taste of freedom, but not fully experiencing it as a way of life. Now, then there are some people who do work they love. They decide when they want to do their work. They decide when they don't want to do their work. All of those decisions are in their power. No one else decides for them how they spend their time. This is true freedom. And that is what I think is one of the most amazing parts of having a coaching business. So I want to talk about how to get there because a lot of people get this wrong. Sometimes when I tell people about the process of becoming a coach and I say how what we do in the academy is we have a 6-month certification. Usually it takes people about 6 months and about 5 hours per week of training. And some people say, oh my gosh, I want that so much, but I just don't think I have the time for that right now. I'm just so busy. And one of the things I ask is, well, is it a priority for you to have more time freedom in your life? Is it a priority for you to not be so busy all the time? And people will often say yes. So here's the thing. If you want freedom, if you want more time freedom in your life, but you're telling yourself that you're too busy to create it, something's got to change. You've got to break this paradigm. This is what I call the paradox of freedom. And the reason I call it a paradox is because in order to get to the place where you have total freedom, you may need to temporarily reduce your free time so you can learn how to create a foundation for having time freedom. So in other words, when you want a life of more time and freedom, you don't just get it by wanting it, right? I have a whole episode on this called Desire versus Commitment. Check that out if you want to learn more about that. So you need to prioritize learning how to create a foundation for yourself to do that. And that learning will temporarily take up some of your time and freedom, but it's so worth it in the long run. So it sounds very counterintuitive at first because some people who value freedom often need to sacrifice some of the ways that they escape their current life to get temporary relief. And they might be thinking, I'm missing out on other things in my life. But those who truly have full freedom over their time, and they understand it's so worth it because they're prioritizing things now that are going to allow them to create more time in the future. So if you want more time, how can you prioritize things now that are going to allow you to create more time? Are you prioritizing things that are setting you up for freedom? Are you learning skills that are allowing you to create a life where you can have more freedom? In order to have true time freedom, which is the ability to choose how you want to spend your time and your life, then you must make sure that you are prioritizing the things that are setting your life up for that time freedom. So it's kind of like deciding, would you rather go on vacation once a year and be busy, busy, busy throughout the remainder of that year? Or would you rather go on no vacation for 1 year and then be able to go on as many vacations as you want every single year after? You get to decide that. So since you're going to be busy anyway, you might as well keep yourself busy getting the training or education that you know you need to set yourself up for success. So when people say things like, I want to make a bigger difference, I want more freedom, but I'm just too busy right now, then you need to examine what that too busy really is about. If you're too busy to create your own freedom, then the work starts with you ending that cycle and starting a new cycle that focuses on doing the things that set you up for the freedom that you want. You following me? So what you want to declare for yourself is this thought. This could be a thought or a mantra to have. I'm willing to put in the work to experience all the freedom that I could possibly imagine. I am willing to put in the work to experience all the freedom that I could possibly imagine. You get to decide that, you get to believe that, and you get to honor that. Now, before I had a coaching business, I was quite frustrated at the fact that my boss was calling the shots and I had to make the best with what I had, which was very little free time and also very little income. So when I realized that I wanted to have more freedom, I wanted to become a coach, I realized that I needed to be properly trained in coaching. I needed to learn the art and business of coaching, which in the short term limited my freedom because I invested more time into training while I was still working my other job. But because I put in the work to establish a foundation for my path to freedom, I was able to launch and sustain the coaching business of my dreams. And to this day, now that I train coaches, still to this day, I don't work for anyone, right? I decide to work because I want to work. I decide to make these podcast episodes because I want to make these episodes. It's truly a delight for me. So I can decide to work when I want. I can decide to not work when I don't want. A lot of you have been tuning in, know that this year, I'm giving myself a vacation every single month. And we have more vacations planned for the second half of the year, which I'll talk about in a later episode. I'm so excited. I can decide to travel whenever I want to travel. There's nothing stopping me from making those choices. So I consider the life I have now to be true freedom. I'm not too busy for anything. In fact, one of the things I love is when a coach in the academy says, hey, I wonder if we can get a template or a guide on this if they need a little bit of extra support or a resource to help them better master the material. Myself and our team, we're able to whip it up right away. I mean, oftentimes we get things to our coaches within 24, 48 hours. We don't mess around. We're not too busy. We're able to honor our commitments and prioritize what we want. And that's what I just want you to know. And I want all of the coaches listening to this or the aspiring coaches to know when you're beginning your journey. Because a lot of people are putting a Band-Aid on their desire for freedom when really it's just a short-term escape or a quick fix. But the lifestyle that they continue to live, it's still keeping them stuck. It's giving them the opposite of freedom. So if there's a desire you have for more freedom in your life, going through the process of learning how to create that or going through a coach training, that is a commitment of your time and energy. And I think it's worth it though, if you ultimately experience the freedom that a coaching business can provide. Now, when some people hear this, they think, it sounds like a lot of work, though, to establish freedom. It sounds like that's going to be a lot of work, and I don't know if I'm down for that. So remember, any path that you take in life, it's going to have discomfort come up at times. Discomfort happens if you stay on the path that you're on, and it also comes if you start a new path. So the question to ask yourself is, are you on the path right now that's leading you to the outcome you want to have in your life? Are you experiencing the right kind of discomfort, meaning the discomfort that's actually going to take you where you want to be? One of the things that I tell myself is, since discomfort's going to show up no matter what path I take in life, I'm going to decide to do whatever it takes to create the life I ultimately want. I want to get the discomfort that goes along with that versus the discomfort that goes with just settling with what is, because there's going to be discomfort no matter which path you go down. So what I want to leave you with is a reminder that time doesn't happen to you. No one is ever too busy. You can choose how you want to spend your time. You are the architect of your calendar. You get to decide what you invest your time in. Whether those are useful investments of your time is for you to determine. And when you are deliberate about your life, you will realize that life doesn't happen to you. You'll realize that you are no longer at the effect of life. You will realize that you are no longer a victim to your calendar. You get to choose exactly what it is that you'd like to commit your time to, and you get to create the life that you want, having all the freedom that you could possibly imagine. So, would you still say that you're a busy person after listening to this episode? What if you released that label from yourself and you no longer saw yourself as too busy? You no longer let that ever be an excuse to not pursue something that you really wanted. So if anything else from this episode, my challenge for you is to stop telling yourself that you're ever too busy and instead make the time for the things that matter. Thanks for tuning into this episode. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coaches' secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.